Would you consider standing around doing nothing to be a waste of your time? I imagine most people would say yes to this question with no hesitation. I, on the other hand, would answer, it depends. When given no additional context, the act of standing around doing nothing does indeed seem like a waste of time due to the existence of the word nothing in that sentence. Every moment you aren't doing something is a moment you're not moving your life forward. But what if we apply some additional context to the idea of doing nothing? Let's say, for example, you're horribly sick and don't have the energy to do anything else other than the bare minimum of taking care of yourself and resting to stave off the sickness. This implies you're sitting in bed most of the day, which by definition counts as doing nothing. And yet I think you'd agree that it's entirely understandable that you wouldn't be progressing your life under these circumstances. That can wait until you're feeling better. Ideally, though, you don't get sick in the first place, assuming you take care of yourself. So let's look at a different example. Imagine you're in a waiting room for a doctor's appointment, and you've been here for over 30 minutes so far with no idea of how much longer it's going to be until it's your turn. There's just one problem. You forgot to bring any kind of entertainment. No phone, no book, no nothing. Just you, your brain, and crippling boredom. Would you consider this to be a waste of your time? Once again, my answer probably differs from yours. In this particular case, I would say boredom is actually a good thing, because it means you're completely alone with your thoughts, free from distractions. Letting your brain wander, think, and process the things that have happened recently is actually an extremely healthy habit, and I therefore cannot reasonably conclude that this is a waste of time. I would actually say the opposite. This is something I regularly schedule into my average day. But enough hypotheticals. Let's talk about something that actually happened to many of us. Post-secondary education. In my case, I went through a college computer science program, and oh boy, was it an absolute slog. There were a lot of reasons for this. I didn't have my driver's license at this point, so I was taking the bus there and back, which was 2 hours both ways. Most classes were taught by professors who didn't actually have experience in the field and were just part-timers who read the textbook and curriculum, then copy-pasted entire paragraphs into PowerPoint presentations. One class in particular used a piece of technology that literally did not function correctly on multiple occasions, including during the midterm and final exams, causing me to fail both of them. That same class was taught by a part-timer whose ideal of a final project was to make the class compete for the highest grade. Certain classes pissed me off so much that I ended up failing those classes due to my emotional response being to not do the assignments out of pure anger. And all of this led to a complete derailing of my program due to how prerequisites work. So, in summary, I would spend 2 hours on the bus every day just to have professors read entire essays from PowerPoint presentations. Doesn't particularly sound like a good use of my time, now does it? This time, I'm willing to bet our answers were the same. I ended up spending the majority of those classes watching YouTube videos, having shown up exclusively for attendance purposes since most professors required me to show up. I would have rather stayed home and played video games and saved $3 on the bus fee. That being said, I still considered the journey of getting the degree to be worth it, agonizing as it was. You see, because paying attention would require me to have the attention span and focus levels of a Navy SEAL, I ended up not paying attention, and this made doing assignments harder, since I would first have to retroactively go over the content covered in class by myself. I also gave up the ability to ask the professor questions, meaning my Google search game had to be on point. Honestly, I think that's the biggest thing I got out of the computer science program. As long as your ability to search things up is well developed, you can learn anything program-related. But back to those assignments. Anyone who has been to college knows they don't come at you one at a time. They come at you 5 at a time, at the very least. And since I was making things harder for myself by not paying attention in class, I had to be quite disciplined in how I handled my assignments. This is where the idea of work not doing itself really got hammered into my brain. Work and deadlines do not care who you are or what ails you. Unless you take action, the work isn't going to get done, and the deadlines are going to creep up on you. Anyone who has been to college also knows that stress management is extremely important. I personally have very high mental fortitude, and had spent the entirety of high school putting assignments off until the last second, so I was able to handle it for the most part. That being said, I still think my mental fortitude got upgraded as a result of going through the program. By the way, Don't put off assignments until the last minute. If there's one thing that absolutely destroys your mental energy, it's having things to do and not doing them. Each thing you don't have done is basically another browser tab open in the background. The more of them you have open, the more energy gets consumed and the less processing power you have available. Like many others, I reached a point mentally in my second year where I asked myself, do I really want to keep doing this? Eventually, I reached the conclusion that yes, I did. At this point, I had figured out two things. I hate college, and I hate coding for other people. Despite that, I still wanted to finish the program, since should I ever decide to look for a job, regardless of my distaste for being employed under someone else, having the degree is proof to employers that I can finish what I started and that I have at least a basic understanding of computer science. Plus, I didn't want to let my mom down, and I also wanted to continue developing my discipline. And eventually, after talking to guidance counselors and making a plan to take my derailed program and get it back on track, I managed to graduate and get that sweet, sweet piece of paper. I also apparently graduated with distinction, meaning I got a final grade average of more than 80 in all of the program's courses, so that was nice. But the question to answer after explaining all of this is, was college worthwhile? Do I feel like it was a waste of money and time? No, I don't. I could have self-taught myself everything I needed to get a tech job and worked my butt off to get in that way, but college was so ruthlessly boring that it taught me things I wouldn't have learned that way. The reason I explained all this is because it's a perfect example of how you can get something valuable out of moments that would have otherwise seemed like a total waste. Knowing what value moments like these might provide allows you to look back at what you've experienced before and see things in a new, more positive light. Not only that, but it lets you identify what activities might create a more balanced and healthy life for yourself in the future. Sure, working for 14 hours straight might theoretically be the best value for your time, but depending on the kind of work you're doing and whether or not you like the work, you're probably going to need a break or two in order to stay at maximum efficiency. 12 hours of work where you gave your 100% is better than 14 hours of work where you only were able to give 70%. Accordingly, not only does 2 hours off of work make your work quality leagues better, but it also allows your brain to process everything, organize what else you need to do that day, and plenty of other benefits that only you could know about owing to your unique life circumstances. So remember, next time you have to do something horribly mundane, boring, or otherwise unpleasant, think about what you stand to gain from it. Need to shovel the driveway? That's free exercise. Waiting for the bus? That's a great time to make that new playlist you've been thinking about. Assignment needs doing? Getting it done now will make sure you don't get mentally taxed in the future. Just because what you spent your time on wasn't fun and or productive doesn't mean it was a waste. You can find value in even the most mundane and boring tasks. Keep that in mind, and perhaps you might just find yourself a little bit happier with your life. Thanks for watching, and congratulations to the future version of you that knows how to get value out of every moment. I hope you enjoyed listening to me yap, and if you think you'd like more, I've got just the thing in mind for you.